Welcome. If you're considering running a faculty-led program at WKU, then you're in the right place. In this video, my colleagues and I will give you 5 considerations for developing a faculty-led program at WKU. I'm Diana Howard. I'm a program coordinator in the Office of Global Learning and International Affairs, also known as GLIA. I'm joined by Katie Bush, who's also a program coordinator in our office, and Amy Neiman, who is an instructor in the Department of Earth, Environmental, and Atmospheric Sciences. Amy has led numerous faculty-led programs throughout the years through our office, and she's here to provide the faculty perspective. Thank you both for being here, and let's get started. So 5 considerations for developing a faculty-led program. A faculty-led program is defined as a credit-bearing college-level global learning experience where faculty accompany students from WKU as teachers and as program leaders. Both tenured and non-tenured faculty can teach a course abroad or within the United States. Whether you're a full professor, an associate professor, an assistant professor, or an instructor, you can work with our office to develop a program for your students. Faculty work with our office to build a comprehensive program that includes courses, excursions, housing, transportation, and food. They can all be included in an integrated package for the program. Faculty compensation, insurance, and travel expenses are all rolled into the program cost. Faculty benefit from leading FLPs in a variety of ways. Faculty travel expenses, compensation, and course-related activities are part of that program cost. Faculty can fine-tune their experiential learning skills, and academic departments have a opportunity to softly recruit for their majors, and faculty can also increase their department's global network. Let's see, so how do you choose a location? Choosing the destination is critical to the success of a faculty-led program. It's important to choose a place, country, and region of the world where students want to go. Apart from the academic rationale, 3 factors that are crucial to site selection are safety, attractiveness of the location, and accessibility. First and foremost, students will not go somewhere that they don't perceive as safe. So while the course offered is central to the mission of the FLP, students also, they're thinking about travel and adventure. So only programs that enroll sufficient numbers of students will be viable over time. And finally, a place should be accessible. Places that are too far away or lack major airports or too expensive to go to will attract fewer students. Students want to be off the beaten track, but they also, at the same time, they have a need to feel safe, connected, and comfortable. So I want to ask Amy, how you travel to Ireland and Hawaii for your faculty-led programs. How did you choose your locations?
Well, I think what's really important is you need to choose locations that you have an interest in, maybe a personal tie, or maybe it's part of your research agenda, a place that you're going to feel very, very comfortable. But to go on with what you just said just a few seconds ago, you do need to choose places that are going to be very interesting to the student as well. It's got to be appealing if you want to be able to recruit students into these types of programs. And, there's lots of different pros and cons when you're choosing whether to go domestic or international. There's very different things that you need to think about with both of those. And I really like having the variety of doing a domestic program as well as doing, a program that is an international program. I have a lot of students who say that their parents will allow them to go to Hawaii over Ireland. because they feel like it's so much closer. But in reality, Ireland is much closer and probably easier to get home and quicker to get home. But it is interesting, that perception of distance, just because it is a foreign place. Also, to kind of go on some of the other things that you said is, cost is a really big issue. There are locations, for example, in Europe that are they have very high cost of living. And you need to think about that. Is that going to be a viable price, when you actually go and figure out your program? Hawaii for 3 weeks would be such an expensive program that it probably would not be a viable program. Or it may be a program that you just run every couple of years. And that's what I would recommend for programs that do have a very high cost to the students, is to think about those maybe not as an every year program, but to run them a little bit less often, giving the students an opportunity to look for scholarships and other important information. Another thing that you mentioned, which is important too with figuring out locations, is the risk management issue. You do really need to think about that, and you need to be prepared. So you have to be comfortable navigating that particular issue in the location that you choose to go to. And it's going to take legwork before you go to be comfortable with the emergency system in those locations, as well as, embassies and things like that, if that's, if you're going to an international location. So yeah, there's just a lot of things to be prepared for. But some of the things, obviously I've already mentioned that students need to find the locations desirable. But I love that I keep going back to the same places, because I feel like my program is evolving because of some of the connections that I make in those particular locations. But I do find that the more I do this, is that I could pick up my content and take it to other places very easily. So I do think that that's a benefit of this. The more comfortable you are with it, you can start to see the academic side in multiple locations that you could shift it. And if you're not curious about your area, the students aren't going to be curious either. They really do feed off your energy. And so that is an important thing to think about as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the other aspect of that is term. So the majority of our faculty-led programs run during the winter or summer terms. During these terms, tuition is waived, so students are only paying for the logistical cost of the program. Most FLPs will have an online component either before the program departs or when it comes back, or sometimes maybe both. The length of the program is determined by a variety of factors, but the typical faculty-led program is anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. It is possible to run an FLP during the fall or spring semester as an added component to an existing course. And in this case, the students would pay tuition plus the cost of the program. So I'm going to ask Amy again, when you're thinking about future programs, future ideas, how would you determine what the appropriate length of the program would be, and then also the term that you would select? Like, how would you do that, Amy?
Yeah. Well, for me, I want to get as much for my buck as I possibly can. So I'm really attracted to the winter and the summer semesters. But I think that there are just so many. We could be very creative with this, I'm sure. But for winter, you are confined to a 3-hour course limit that you can teach in a winter term. So, and also we have to think about how much time we actually have there with the holiday. So typically I see that as a 2-week program, a 3-hour course. And then for the summertime, you can be a little bit more creative because, I normally teach 6 hours in the summer session for Ireland because we can actually go for a longer period of time. So I think that is a benefit to actually do that. I think too, it's good for us to have a variety of those programs that are over 21 days, because there are students who can get certain scholarships for programs that are over 21 days. So, having that out there, students are actually looking for programs that are 21 days or more, and that's a benefit in the summertime. So again, I just kind of look at those two different time periods. It's also a matter of, a place like Hawaii, it's so expensive that keeping that just to a 3-hour course, 2 weeks, is just enough to keep the price in a price range that is affordable for the students, and also, of course, eliminating the tuition costs, which I think is definitely very appealing. I also think about it from the academic side, is that we have contact and engagement hours that we must get in for each course that we teach, whether it's on campus or in one of these formats. So you have to think about that, where I think that Diana already brought this up, that you have to think about, with this particular course, do I need to teach beforehand, or is it all going to take place during with some work after? And for Ireland, 3 hours that I teach, there's a lot of pre-departure work that the students need to complete in one of those classes. Whereas once we're there, they're done. It's just a matter of discussion and some follow-up work that they have to do. Whereas the other course completely takes place almost all while we're on the program. So you have to think about your own academic needs that you have for your course. You have to think about, how pricey your trip is going to be, and then how many hours you want to actually offer. And I think those things can really help you gauge when to go.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie to talk about courses.
All right. So yes, consideration number 3 is thinking about what courses will actually be offered on the program. So first, you want to consider how many courses will be offered. Generally speaking, if there's only one program leader who will be teaching, that person usually offers the choice of 2 courses to the students. If there are 2 program leaders who will be teaching, whether from the same or different academic department, it's more common to see those faculty each offer 1 course. But this decision is really based on what makes sense for the program location, the program length, and what may appeal to the students. I do want to mention that partnering with a faculty leader from another academic discipline can really be a great way to create unique opportunities for interactions of the course and for students to gain different perspectives with the subject matter. The type of course offered really impacts which students will be attracted to the program, mostly based on how it fits into their graduation requirements, but also personal and professional goals. We in GLIA really recommend that each program have at least 1 colonnade or lower level course. This just increases the amount of students that can take it and have it actually count directly to their graduation requirements. A last point for this consideration is that while many faculty choose to utilize a course that's already on the books, it is possible to go through the university process of proposing a new course. Keep in mind that the 4th column of the Connections colonnade, International Experiences, is almost exclusively for courses developed for international faculty-led programs. So Amy, what factors do you typically consider when selecting the courses to teach on your programs?
This is a very good question and a very important one, because only your super serious students that want to travel, they don't care what course it's going to be, but most students will want to know how this course is going to fit into their graduation. Is it going to count towards their program? So, many programs might be geared just towards your major. And if that's all you plan to do, then, you're in good luck. But many other programs, need more than just the majors, or, you want to get it out there. So Gen Ed is the way to go. And being able to fulfill a requirement is just very important to the students. They're usually able to sell it to their parents better as well, if the parents understand how it's helping them get towards their graduation. Now, you do run into, many students have already completed all of their Gen Ed requirements. So what do you do at that point? And I have found that having an upper level, a 300 or 400 level course is ideal, because of course students have to have so many of these upper level requirements to be able to graduate. So having that available is also extremely important. So I try to do that. The other thing, and of course that's going to appeal to students outside of your home program. But the other thing I have done, I have been approached by students who really don't have much left in their program and just need, electives towards their major, but they're not in a program within my department. And we have been able to work successfully with those departments to create an independent study for that one student. So just to give you a couple of examples, we went to Australia one year. We had a marketing major, and we were able to create a geography independent study for him that looked at the marketing, particularly of indigenous populations of Australia. So that was really interesting. We also had a graduate student in public health that was able to create a geography of public health in Hawaii project that allowed her to get credit for her master's program. So there are ways to be pretty inventive. If you have students who are interested and they want to be a part of your program, it may mean a little extra work for you to do that, but it's definitely worth it to have, those individuals with you.
Awesome, thank you. So when you have an idea of what courses to offer, you'll want to start thinking about constructing the syllabus and designing the course, which is our fourth consideration for this video. So in leading a faculty-led program, you are facilitating a high-impact practice, and the location literally becomes your classroom. So it's important to think about how to get students to reflect on what they are experiencing each day on the program. A few elements that we highly recommend in GLIA for including in your course design are finding ways for the group to interact with the locals of the program's location, including having students meet with their own peers if at all possible. Additionally, really consider incorporating texts and other course materials that are focused on cultural preparation and really kind of gaining an understanding of the culture of where you're going to. A way to accomplish both of these recommendations, you could look at integrating virtual experiences into the course. So before, after, or before and after the on-site portion. An example of this could be partnering with a local university and facilitating meetings between both groups of those students, so done virtually. And we're all experts with Zoom now. So Amy, how have you found teaching a faculty-led program to be different than teaching in the traditional classroom setting?
Yeah, this is a really important one. And I think the part that actually makes it exciting is that, it's applied learning versus theoretical learning. And the experiential learning is just probably the most important part after safety of the study abroad, study away experience. Your students are just immersed in the location that you are actually visiting. So all of the cultural elements, the language, the people, the food, even the physical landscape, especially if it's different from where they're used to, it's essentially, everyday life and how people do that in that particular environment. And so what I find to be the most important thing is that the teaching tool here is actually their experience. Whereas in the traditional classroom, it's my experience that I'm projecting to students, but instead you get to take their experience. And that's one thing that we really try to do is, maybe we've been on an adventure that particular day and then getting them to talk about certain things. And just you see the light bulb that continues to go off when they start to make connections to some of the other things that we've talked about in the particular class. So, it's just a very different experience. You don't need to be in a classroom to be able to teach those things, and you don't have to be in a classroom, with these courses. So you don't have to think about that lecture time. It comes in different ways. Every moment is a teachable moment, and you just have to be prepared to identify them. So I carry a notebook with me because maybe we'll be in the middle of a talk and I just start getting ideas of, okay, we need to bring that up because that's such a monumental point. So you just have to be constantly alert because your programs, these courses, it will change the way that students look at the world.
Yeah, I love that. Diana, could you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so our last consideration is how to leverage your professional network for a successful program. So the first step would be to identify any pre-established contacts in the locations you are considering. These could be your own personal contacts, they could be contacts that your colleagues have, contacts from the department, your college, or just the overall university. GLIA can work with you to identify what partnerships might already be in place. And working with these contacts is a great way to get ideas for your program rolling, and is often mutually beneficial for both WKU and the partner within the faculty-led program, but also outside of it as well. So one of these benefits can be in identifying new research opportunities, for example, and these opportunities could end up being integrated into your program or something that continues on long-term once you've returned. So Amy, what are some ways that you might have benefited professionally from leading faculty-led programs over the years?
Well, first of all, I just want to say when I tell people what I do, and this is really such a small part of what I do, it's always, how do I get that job? You know, people are very envious of what we're able to do. And it really is, I say it really is a perk to the job, which actually, you know, makes for a happier work life. But I have to say that what has been very valuable to me is the leadership experience that I have with leading these programs. You know, not only is it the responsibility of taking a large group to a destination that's pretty far from home, but it's also the work that you do prior and after the program, like the budgeting, the scheduling, organizing your teaching to fit into this particular mode. There's so much that you have to accommodate, and it really is rewarding from that leadership perspective, as well as my confidence, I believe, has actually grown in my own personal life because of these actual programs. You mentioned something too about like building relationships in country, and I want to add to that because it's also a benefit here. You know, that's just amazing to build those relationships that you will see actually grow from year to year, develop into friendships as well with people who live in a very different place. And it's okay if you don't have this all figured out the first time, because it will evolve over time. Me personally, for the Ireland program, we started with a tourism agency to help us, you know, schedule everything. And they were so helpful in actually discovering places that I never would have maybe found on my own. And I probably could do all the scheduling without them, but they also have access to negotiate much better pricing than I can on my own. So we like to use them. But just, you know, the locals, when you're at a restaurant, anywhere, talk to the locals, because they will help you uncover the hidden treasures that are really not off the main beat that tourists tend to go for. And that has actually been the best experience, is just to keep talking with those folks and then try to maintain, you know, those relationships when you're not there anymore. And it's really, I have a lot of different examples that it's opened up opportunities for the students when we are there because of those relationships.
Yeah. I will admit, I'm one of those people that said, how can I get that job? And I'm pretty close working in the office. So we could go to the next slide. We'll talk about some of the kind of next steps. All right, so if you are still at this point considering developing a faculty-led program, so next steps would be to discuss ideas that you may have with your academic unit. And you can also, of course, always consult with one of our program coordinators. So currently, Diana and I, within GLIA, we are very happy to help guide you through this entire process. Once you've got that kind of concrete idea, you'll want to start working on the faculty-led program proposal, and then you'll submit that for approval. Once it's approved, you'll work with us in GLIA to get your program off the ground and running. So we really thank you for watching. We hope this information was useful, and we, of course, really hope to be working with you on a program in the future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.